Joining me now to react is Republican Congressman Jim Jordan from Ohio. Sir, thank you for joining us. You heard Senator Rand Paul's complaint about this. Basically was, how do you pay for it? Because like we said, you aren't really cutting Medicaid. That's false. Democrats are screaming that. You're just slowing the growth in the increase in spending.
Right.
All those taxes are going away. That's good news on one hand. On the other hand, how do you pay for what you are doing there?
Well, the focus we've had all along, you're right. Initially, we had, as conservatives in the House, we wanted to get rid of ObamaCare. We wanted to repeal ObamaCare. Obviously, we're not doing that. And that's something we told the voters and something that bothers many of us. But we felt the bill we sent out of the House was the best piece of legislation we were going to be able to pass. So we became focused on one thing, lowering premiums for working class, middle class families. That's going to be our focus. Let's hope the Senate bill, what they send back to us, does that. That, to me, is the key factor because premiums have been going up like crazy. Insurers are leaving the whole exchange program. So let's focus on that. If the Senate bill does that, I think we'll look at it and see when it gets over here.
But you say if, and that's really the challenge, because when I look at the breakdown of this and try and figure out how the math works, it seems like you're acknowledging the fact that these young, healthy people aren't buying these policies they're supposed to. The way to finance the system in Obamacare did not work. So instead, you're laying off the cost in these big risk pools that you're trying to fund. It's hard to know if they're big enough and if they're going to be sufficient, if that's going to work. I mean, how confident are you in that?
Well, we'll see what they send back. We were fairly confident what we sent from the House, the amendment that Mr. Meadows, Mr. MacArthur put together that would give states the option of seeking the waiver to get out from under all those regulations, which we know drove up the cost of premiums. CBO said that premiums would come down under the House plan. We hope that continues in the Senate plan. If it doesn't, we'll have to look at it. One option that Senator Cruz is putting forward, which I think makes a lot of sense, is to say, he calls it a consumer freedom option. And basically it says if insurance companies offer a compliant plan, one that has all the Obamacare regulations in it, as long as they offer one plan that's compliant, that has all those regulations and those components in it, they should be able to offer any other plan that consumers actually want. So not all those regulations that drive up costs. That's freedom. That would actually help consumers, help families. We hope that amendment gets put in the bill here in this discussion draft. We hope that gets added to it.
Can I ask you a quick question? I mean, if you send it back to the states and you give them so much more power, and I see like 5 or 6 things here right off the bat that do that, that give states the right to figure out what works for them. And then they bankrupt themselves with this. They make bad choices, whatever. However they plan it, it didn't work out. Who do they go crying to? Is it the Fed?
Well, I mean, who knows if that happens. Who do they go crying to right now under Obamacare when insurance companies are leaving the markets? We just had this happen 2 weeks ago in Ohio where Anthem announced that they were pulling out of the market.
I know, but they're going back to you guys, and you're rewriting the legislation because of what's happening. So if it happens at the state level, then what?
That's why we should adopt the kind of amendment that Senator Cruz is focused on, which would actually introduce a marketplace back in here and give some options to consumers so they can pick the kind of plan that meets them and their families' needs, not the one that folks here in Washington say, oh, the prescription with all these mandates, all these regulations. That's why we should focus on something like that. And I think that would be a positive if the Senate can put that in. I think conservatives on our side would be very receptive to that kind of amendment.
You're there, we're here, you're listening to the chatter. Does this pass? What's the timeline? What's your bet on everything?
I mean, a couple key things. If it lowers premiums, if it keeps the pro-life protections, the Planned Parenthood defund language, I think that's got to be in there for many of us conservatives. If it does that, we got a chance. But look, we'll probably have to go to conference. They're going to do something different than the House did. The way this works, all Americans know this. You learn this. This is how a bill becomes a law. You go to conference and you iron out those differences. But we need to get this done because we told the American people we were going to get it done, and that's what they elected us to do. So let's make sure we do that.
Congressman, thanks for joining us.
You bet. Well,